peaceful facade of the house quickly shattered. One evening, as Tony and Deborah settled into their new home, they began to notice things that didn't quite add up. At first, it was small things: lights flickering, doors creaking open on their own, and a feeling of being watched. They dismissed these occurrences as mere coincidences, perhaps the result of a creaky old house or the stress of moving into a new place. However, the bizarre events escalated rapidly, and the couple could no longer ignore the unsettling presence that seemed to linger in the house. The first major sign that something was wrong came when Tony, in the middle of the night, felt something touch his leg while lying in bed. It wasn't Deborah who was sleeping beside him, but something or someone else. He reached out to touch the area where he'd felt the sensation, but there was nothing there. Initially, Tony shrugged it off as a strange dream or his imagination, but soon, the strange events grew more intense. Deborah also began to experience unusual events. Understanding, physical attacks, and spirits' wrath. The paranormal activity reached new levels of intensity. The house seemed to have a life of its own. Furniture would move on its own, doors would slam shut, and windows would mysteriously open and close. Objects would disappear, only to reappear in odd locations later. The house's oppressive atmosphere was taking a toll on the couple's mental and physical health. Tony's physical attacks became more frequent. He would wake up to find deep scratches across his body, and in some cases, it felt as if invisible fingers were wrapping around his throat. One evening, as Tony was sitting in the living room, he felt an intense burning sensation across his abdomen. When he looked down, he discovered red marks, almost as if something had been pressed into his skin. Tony began to fear for his safety and wondered if there was something sinister inside the house. He began to consider whether the spirit of Sally, or something far more malevolent, had taken up residence in the house. The Warrens get involved. In the midst of the escalating terror, Tony and Deborah decided to seek outside help. They reached out to renowned paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren, known for their investigations into famous hauntings like the Amityville Horror and the Annabelle doll case. The Warrens were skeptical at first, but agreed to investigate the Sally house after hearing about the strange occurrences. Upon arriving at the house, the Warrens conducted a thorough investigation. They confirmed the presence of paranormal activity, and Ed Warren in particular felt a malevolent energy in the house. The Warrens suggested that the haunting was not just the result of a restless child's spirit, but something darker and more sinister. The presence of Sally, they believed, was not the primary source of the hauntings, but rather a manifestation of a more powerful force. This force was said to be feeding off the fear and suffering of those who lived in the house. Deborah's terrifying experience. Deborah, in particular, became a target of the spirit's wrath. One evening, she was alone in the house when she experienced something that left her terrified. She reported feeling as though something was pressing down on her chest, suffocating her. As she tried to scream, her voice was silenced. Deborah also claimed that she felt a cold, clammy hand grip her leg. The sensation was so intense that she could hardly move. The following days brought more terrifying events. Deborah claimed that she could hear a child's laughter echoing through the house, and sometimes she would see the figure of a little girl out of the corner of her eye. However, when she turned to look, no one would be there. Exorcism attempts. As the haunting grew stronger, Tony and Deborah sought the help of religious figures in an attempt to rid the house of the malevolent spirit. Several priests were brought in to perform exorcisms, but each attempt seemed to fail. The paranormal activity continued, and the attacks became more brutal. Tony and Deborah were at their breaking point. They could no longer endure the terrifying presence that haunted them day and night. Despite the repeated exorcisms and their growing desperation, they were forced to leave the house. The unsolved mystery. The haunting at the Sally house remains one of the most infamous paranormal cases in history. Although Tony and Deborah eventually moved out of the house itself continues to stand, surrounded by rumors and ghost stories. Visitors to the house still report strange occurrences, and the legend of Sally endures. The Sally house has since become a popular destination for paranormal investigators and ghost hunters, eager to uncover the truth behind the terrifying events that plagued the Moreno family. While no one knows for certain what haunts the house, the story of Sally and the horrors that took place within its walls continue to captivate the imaginations of those interested in the supernatural. The mystery of the Sally house remains unsolved, and whether or not the spirit of Sally still lingers within its walls is a question that may never be answered. The legacy of the house, however, lives on in the minds of those who have heard its tale, and in the countless paranormal investigators who continue to probe the depths of its dark history. The Sally house haunting is a testament to the power of fear, the unknown, and the unexplainable forces that may reside in the shadows.